So, you've recently launched a YouTube channel in collaboration with filmmaker Tim Harbour called Dreams of a Dead Man.
Yeah.
Why'd you call it that?
Because in a sense, I think we're all the living dead, dreaming our impossible dreams of reality. Or at least that's what my mate Pete Baker told me.
Who's that? Is he famous?
He's a sort of social media guru. Is interested in Zen Buddhism and non-duality theory.
Right, as most of the kids are these days. So why now? I mean, let's be honest, it's the later stage of your life. You're not going to be joining the 27 club, are you? Maybe the 72 club if you get everything over and done with in sort of the next few months. What? So why now?
Well, I've been interested in science and philosophy and the arts all my life, really. And as long as it meant that I didn't have to read too many long books. I stumbled across this concept of the 4 existential fears that were invented by a guy named Irving Yalom. He was an American psychiatrist, and he thought these things up in 1980. And he reckoned it was these fears underlie a lot of human behaviour. And he used it quite successfully to treat his patients and help them get better.
Right, but instead you're using it to make music.
Well, we're using it as the basis for making music and also to explore other themes of human relationships and things like that.
Right, so where the 60s gave us the Fab Four, you're giving us the 4 existential fears.
Yeah.
Were there any other fears who left before they became famous?
Well, there's sort of the everyday fears that people have about things. You know, there was an example in the paper recently where people were frightened that they weren't going to have lids on their yogurt pots anymore.
Right, and you made a song about that?
No, I didn't.
Right.
It didn't interest me very much, but
okay.
I just thought it was interesting what people get upset about.
Right.
And frightened of, you know, the idea of the yogurt not lasting as long as it might do, I suppose for some people is a frightening prospect.
And the fears that do interest you, these existential fears, there are 4 of them, what are they?
Well, there's fear of death, which is sort of obviously an existential fear.
Right.
There's fear of isolation. There's fear of meaninglessness, which I think is, you know, shows itself in a lot of human behaviour. And then there's the fear of freedom.
Fear of freedom?
Yeah.
Freedom's a good thing, isn't it?
Well, I think people are frightened of having too much of it.
Too much of it?
I think so. I think if people feel there aren't any rules or any structure, they get frightened. That's how I would interpret it anyway.
Right.
And they're the fear of, I mean, it's the most difficult one to get your head around, I think, of all the 4.
Sure. It definitely seems weaker than the other 3.
Yeah.
A bit more tenuous.
Well, Irving Yalom's still alive, actually. He's 93, so you might want to raise that with him.
Well, did you check with him before making all this music about his ideas?
No, I didn't think he'd be bothered.
No.
And I couldn't be bothered, actually, either, so
right.
I didn't bother to do that.
Right, and these existential fears, you say we see them everywhere in human behaviour.
Yeah.
Give me some examples.
Well, I think fear of death is pretty evident because...
it's a lot more frightening than freedom, I'll give you that.
Yeah, and people don't like talking about it, and they don't want to discuss it.
What about death metal?
Death metal?
Death metal.
Yeah.
It's an entire genre of music, isn't it? With death in the title.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
You don't get much more talking about it than that, do you? Screaming about it, shouting.
I don't think it's about death, is it? It's about metal mainly, but it's a particular type of metal.
Right. It's more earth sciences than the psychology that you're interested in.
Yeah, I think that's a good description, yeah. It's sort of earth science music.
Right.
Yeah.
And isolation then?
Well, isolation is, being not part of the group is a very primitive existential fear, because obviously if you were isolated from the group, you had less chance of survival. And I think, therefore, it's one of the it is one of the main underlying fears that people have, is being on their own or, not having any support.
Sure.
I think that makes sense.
And these music videos are going to bring people together, is that the idea? Or just make them aware of how lonely they are?
Well, I'm not sure I don't think the music videos are there to make people aware of the existential fears, because sort of subconsciously they already are.
Right. So you're not really teaching them anything.
But no, it wasn't my intention to teach them anything. No.
What was your intention?
It was just to explore the possibilities of having that as the basis for some music videos and see where it led. So it's sort of an experimental thing, really.
Right.
See what happened if we used that as the basis.
Right.
See what came out of it.
And what was your hypothesis?
I didn't have one.
You didn't have one?
No, I didn't. And I've never really had any hypotheses. Right. It's something that I've never really had.
And how will you know if this experiment's been a success?
I've got no way of measuring it.
No, but you're uploading the videos on YouTube, is that right?
Yeah.
Right, so you've got quite a numerical measure there, haven't you? At least of how many people have seen them. Is that part of what you're measuring? No.
Well, it's one way of measuring it, yeah. I mean, it's, I think we aimed initially to get 10 views per video because that's just more than the number of friends I have. So I knew that if I had 10, then at least somebody other than a friend or a member of my family was watching it. So I'd reached a new audience, if you like, even if it was only a few people.
Or some bots. There's a lot of bots around out there on YouTube.
There are a lot of bots around, yeah.
Yeah, that's the theme of one of the songs, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Song of the Eye. AI.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's not about a bot, that. It's about imagining what an AI might feel like in the future if it develops sufficiently to have emotions and some form of...
Like that pale fella off Star Trek.
Genuine experience. Yeah, data.
Yeah. And what do you think the emotional response of people will be to these videos? Are they supposed to be frightened?
I don't think...
On a subconscious level, maybe, if nothing else.
I don't know. I don't think we meant for them to be frightened. I think...
Right. Are you frightened at the idea of people watching them? Is that why you've chosen such an obscure topic?
Well, it is a bit alarming, isn't it, to think of you having your work scrutinised.
Right.
In some ways it may be best not to ever publish anything.
Yeah. Certainly safer.
It's a lot safer.
Especially if you don't seem to have any idea why you did it.
Yeah. Well...
I mean, you can't say what emotional experience the viewer's supposed to have. Are you getting something out of it?
Well...
I'm being paid to interview you, so I'm getting that. What are you getting out of all this? You must be thousands in the hole with camera equipment and guitars and studio time, and what's it all for?
Well, it's creating something that exists when something didn't exist before. So at least there's something there
on YouTube
that wasn't there before. Yeah. And if you
use the Google time machine, the videos aren't there.
Yeah,
and then they are.
And there's something added to the world in some way.
It sounds rather grand, doesn't it?
Which
Adding
wasn't
something
there
to
before.
The world.
Well, it's a very small amount. It does sound grand, but it's actually like it's sort of spitting in the wind, really, isn't it?
Right.
That's probably the best way to describe it. And
pissing in the ocean.
My work is it's pissing in the ocean of life.
Your work is the beads of piss striking the surface of the ocean.
Spraying out in the wind like a yellow foam.
Carrying fear and death. And
carrying these bullets of
isolation.
A dreadful fear that people are probably not going to want to watch. It's not only just pissing in the ocean in a storm. It's doing it in a place where nobody lives and there's no one there to see it.
Right.
So,
but you know that it's there.
Yeah, I know it's happened.
It wasn't there.
I know that's happened.
However briefly before those atoms of piss are dispersed.
The piss has gone out in the wind. It's added a little bit of yellow colour to perhaps what was
invisible to the naked eye, but you know it's there.
Yeah, almost.
That's the best you can muster, really.
Yeah, I think probably. Yeah, it's on the sort of right on the cusp of invisibility, where you don't really know it's there, but you think maybe it is. Right. So I think that that's your work. That's what we've done with it. Yeah, we've created this, yellow spray that's going out across the ocean and getting lost where there's no one there to see it. I think that's probably the most you could say about it.
Thank you.
Pleasure.